Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. How severe is youth unemployment rates in both developing and developed countries? What is the United Nations International Labor Organization, along with 20 of the other UN agencies, doing to focus attention on this problem and to help alleviate it? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Youth unemployment is a major challenge to the vast majority of the countries and societies around the world. Today we're going to take a look at this particular issue and what can be done to help overcome it. My guest today is an expert on youth unemployment. My guest today is Ms. Azita Berar Ahwad, who is the Director of the Employment Policy Department of the ILO. Ms. Azita Berar Ahwad was the Director of the Arab States from 1999 to 2000, Arab States Multidisciplinary Advisory Team, and she was the Deputy Director of the ILO's Regional Office for the Arab States based in Beirut, Lebanon. Ms. Azita Berar Ahwad, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Appreciate you being with me today. Let's talk. We're going to get into youth unemployment in just a moment, but let's talk about the International Labor Organization. It's the third oldest of the UN specialized agencies. When was the ILO formed? When was it formed? Why was it formed? What's your basic mission?
One of the oldest organizations formed right after the First World War for social justice, but also social justice being a basis for peace. And as a specialized agency of the UN system, which is focusing on the conditions of work, employment opportunities, and setting the standards, global standards, international standards, providing guidance on what are the conditions, the good conditions of work, or what we have been crystallizing in decent work agenda. Jobs, but good jobs. And observation of these standards, global standards, is one main function, but also technical cooperation, assisting governments, assisting social partners. ILO is unique. Why in the UN system? Because ILO is tripartite, brings around the table governments, employers, and workers' organizations. So the three parties of the production of the world of work. And by making them have dialogue and consensus on each and every issue, solutions are brought together much faster and in a much more practical way to deal with the different aspects and perspectives that both governments, employers, and workers bring to the table.
And that's very important to have all three of the stakeholders involved, the employers, the workers, and the governments, because then they develop the consensus, they develop the strategy, the programs, and they all buy into them and they support them and they help carry them out to fruition and to success, hopefully.
Yes,
so
yes.
It's very critical to do that.
Absolutely, yeah, and that becomes the reality check that this is something that has taken into account the different interest point of view of the workers, of the employers, of the governments, bring together all of them to find workable solutions.
Exactly. Now, on your website, you have 4 pillars of the ILO. These are the foundation pillars, I guess. Just briefly, what are the 4 pillars of the International Labor Organization?
So, 4 pillars: first, fundamental rights and principles at work. Meaning that what are the basic rights that need to be respected. So we have a number of international conventions, as we call them, international standards that really set the basis for fundamental rights. We have employment promotion, more and better job opportunities for everyone who seek the opportunity to work. We have social dialogue, that's the process that I explained, bringing together all parties, especially governments, employers, and workers' organization, to have dialogue on policies, on programs. And we have the last pillar, which is social protection, very important, so that extension of social protection, whether we are talking about access to health insurance or pensions, that is part of the global agenda with 4 pillars of what we call decent work agenda.
That we'll come back to decent work agenda in a few moments, or maybe we should stay with it right now. What briefly, before we get into the other aspects, what is the decent work agenda?
Well, the decent work agenda is about what we need to promote are more job opportunities, but quality job opportunities. Opportunities that basically respect fundamental rights and conditions of work according to the international standards that we have in a number of areas. And as I just mentioned to you, the 4 pillars come together: the fundamental rights, the issue of employment promotion, social dialogue, and the social protection. Together, they form the decent work agenda.
Exactly. Now, in the opening, I mentioned about unemployment youth, or youth unemployment, I should say, not unemployed youth. Unemployed youth would probably be a better way to put it. But how severe is this problem? And is this problem, so often we think about youth who are unemployed, we think about developing countries, but it really is worldwide, is it not, in developed and developing countries? But what are some of the statistics on that?
It is severe, and it has become more severe. Let me just give you a couple of statistics. You asked for it. 73 million of all the global unemployed are young women and men unemployed. And that is about 37% of total unemployment in the world. As you said, the problem wasn't so severe or was more localized. It has become a global challenge. There is no region in the world that is immune to the problem of youth unemployment. We have seen a worsening of trends, in particular after the global economic and financial crisis that hit some countries but then spread to others. But also we are seeing some structural difficulties, in the sense that a generation ago you were sure that an educated young person would find a job if they looked for the job. Now we even seeing this problem becoming difficult for educated youth. Let me just give you an example of how the different regions rate. The highest unemployment rate, we are having it as per region, North Africa, Middle East, Arab states, unfortunately, and higher even for young women and men than men in these regions. But we have also seen very high unemployment rates in certain countries in Europe, for instance. But it's also an issue in Latin America, where you have 6 out of 10 employed young persons in informal employment. So the question is not just unemployment, but also low quality employment, or those who have a job, but the job and the earnings from this job are not enough to lift them out of poverty, out of their conditions, or to project into the future. So we are, if we add up both the unemployed and those who are having a job but not a good job, not a sustainable job, not a stable job, we are talking about 40% of the youth population, and that is enormous. And if we compare it to general unemployment rate population, youth typically are having 3 times more, and some regions, some sub-regions, 3.5 times, 5 times more than adults at the risk of being unemployed.
And what are some of the factors contributing to this? Are there situations where governments should be working with the private sector to help create more jobs, or the private sector creating more jobs? Educational institutions, you mentioned many well-educated youth cannot find jobs. We see that in the United States and many countries around the world, but what are some of the factors contributing to that?
Well, you said it all. I mean, it's all of that.
Did I? I didn't mean to.
Let me just say, it's not, I mean, part of the challenge or the difficulty is that it's not a one single magic bullet or one culprit that we can identify. It's very much a context-specific analysis that we need to do why in a particular setting those are who are the unemployed, because also youth are not homogeneous. When we are talking about youth unemployment, you have different socioeconomic background, gender we spoke about, but also different levels of education. We have the early school leavers, we have the graduates from universities, so they have different difficulties in the labor market, and therefore the answers also, the measures are different. But let me come back to the question you posed. First, there have been less and less good quality jobs being created. So that's a question of investment, that's a question in developing countries of economic transformation, structural transformation of the type that creates more good quality job opportunities. Those are that are attractive to educated people or people who have invested in their education, in their tertiary education, university education, to have these kinds of jobs. But it is also a question that with changing technology, with changing demands in the labor market, this is fast evolving. So the skills that we were taught in previously do not always match what job market requires. So this continuous evolution of technology, the way we produce things, and the education not really catching up with these changes is what makes it difficult, and this skill mismatch. But also we have to appreciate that we can't anticipate all kinds of technological developments and therefore prepare. But there are easy solutions to find a way of matching skills and what with the labor market needs, and that is part of what we call public-private partnerships or social partners engaged in with the training institutions to adapt continuously the curriculum for the training, but also the way these skills are being taught to the requirements of the job market.
And as you mentioned, I think you said like roughly 40% of the youth are unemployed or certainly underemployed or a combination of the two. What are the downsides of this? I mean, you and I can sit here, we can see this obviously, but what is the loss, the human tragedy of this, the human loss, plus contributions to the society, the gross domestic product? What are some of the downsides of having such a large population unemployed or not able to achieve their full potential?
It has many consequences, and I'm not sure that we are measuring all of it, but that's why we are really saying it's urgent that we act, and we act and we support. Let me just give you, first, if you take the generation who is right now struggling with their transition to the labor market, this will have a lifetime impact over their life cycle because of the wages, because of pensions, because of their delayed access integration. But also work experience is not just about earning an income. It's a way to socialization, to become an active member of the society, to have faith in the institutions, to engage positively. And we see also that in particular for very marginalized groups of young people, deprivation can lead to antisocial behavior, to many other problems. But we also see that it affects the demographic fabric of, young people. Recently in Europe, there was it's clear that they are delaying the time they want to form their families, the way they want to engage in life. So it really changes the perspectives of the generation itself, but also the entire society. So we really must need to focus on it, to find solutions, to basically break this disconnect between young people and the job market, but basically young people and the institutions. And I really insist social and political institutions. I think that's very important.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We would encourage our viewers to go to the website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to take a look at some of the previous shows. Also, if you are involved with any type of media outlet, be it a website, be it a public broadcasting system, community access television, or whatever it may be, and have an interest in these international programs, please feel free to download them and to show them at no charge. This is a public service provided to help people better understand international issues and how they impact their lives. Today we're talking about youth unemployment in both developed and developing countries. And my guest today is an expert on this topic. My guest today is Ms. Azita Berar Ahwad, who is the director of the Employment Policy Department of the International Labor Organization. We're talking about youth unemployment. This is a severe problem, and you mentioned so many of the downsides and the negative consequences. And of course, it's just sad. As humans, we all want to reach our full potential. We want to reach self-actualization, as they say, and employment is certainly one way to do that. Not the only way, certainly, but it's very important to do that. Now, the International Labor Organization, I mentioned in the opening, and I want to make sure I get this right, you launched today the Global Initiative on Decent Jobs for Youth, and you did it in conjunction with 20 other United Nations agencies. What exactly is this program, and what will it produce as far as helping to focus on this problem?
Yes, in fact, the ILO Director General launched this global initiative today at the Youth Forum on behalf of the entire UN system that have come together through this global initiative to basically tackle and address what we were just talking about, this challenge which has become global, the youth employment crisis. And we shouldn't be worried of using the word crisis, because it's really a crisis of the number of jobs, but also the quality of jobs that are available. So in this global initiative, what do we want to do? We have brought together the full power, convening power of the UN system, and the 21 agencies with their own specific specialization to work together to maximize the potential, the impact. And our two words that we want is action and impact. Mm-hmm. And this global initiative is right at the center of a global challenge, but we want very much to engage all partners. So the UN, the 21 agencies, as big as they may be in terms of conglomerate, are only going to be the nucleus of this initiative, but we are inviting all other partners, governments, private sector, parliamentarians, legislators, opinion leaders, academia, media, to support this initiative, social partners, workers, employers or association, and youth organizations, representatives of youth themselves, because we really do believe that youth are part of the solutions, and with an enabling environment, we can unleash their dynamism, their potential, and their creativity in finding solutions for the problem. So we will be working at different levels. At the global level, we are going to form what we call a strategic group of these groups of people to mobilize, to advocate, but also to orient the entire initiative. But we are going really to work in countries, in different countries, participating countries, to make sure that the UN system working together and synergizing brings all the expertise needed. Let me give you some very concrete examples. Mm-hmm. Climate change, that's destroying jobs, creating new job opportunities. Many young people can be skilled in working in these new job opportunities that are going to be created. So investment is investing in dealing with the consequences of climate change, but also it is investing in job creation for youth. So I really think that that is what we want to bring. Let me give you another example. Lots of young people are having a lot of startups, including on the internet. But many do not have the type of support, advice, environment to work with. So one area of work will be to establish tech hubs, but in developing countries, which is really incubator for startups in very important new technologies. So these are all some of the elements. We are going to be very practical. We are also going to focus on disadvantaged youth, in particular youth who are caught in the context of conflict, emerging from conflict, refugee, internally displaced youth. So I really think that this gives you some idea of where we will bring all of our technical expertise, knowledge, but also mobilize all the existing investment. But we are also calling, this is a call for joining this global initiative. And today this was launched, and really the reception has been so far excellent, in the sense that everybody agrees that this is the global challenge and we need to be part of it and we need to work together. So this is a challenge we've put ourselves to the UN system in its entirety to make sure that we deliver on what we have promised.
And our viewers can go to www.ilo.org to get more information on this particular program and many others we've not talked about today.
Yes.
But this is a very important program, it certainly is. Now, how will you monitor this? Are you going to monitor it to see where you've been successful, where maybe it needs to be tweaked or changed or that type of thing? But how will you monitor it over the next several years?
So we will put together, actually we've started on it, a global group, strategic group at this global level, but that will be mirrored in the countries and the regions where we are going to work. So basically we have set a strategy for ourselves, a goal, and this is very much linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, the new UN Agenda 2030 SDGs, which has very measurable impacts. Okay, so we have said by 2030 we really want to reduce the rate of what we call in the technical jargon, those young people who are neither in employment nor in education. The percentage, this is really growing. So one benchmark for us would be if in specific situations we have been able to reach that goal, whether that is through support to entrepreneurship, whether that is through support to sectoral investment and public employment programs, or private sector investment on quality apprenticeship, whatever the path may be, that is the ultimate goal. Bringing down the numbers of those who are unemployed or who are neither in employment nor in education.
I'd like to mention too, before we go too far, that we put up on the screen the wrong website, but it is www.ilo.org.
Yes.
I'll make sure it's org and not com, because
Yes.
that would not be the correct one. This is very interesting, and you mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 logical, practical, achievable goals over the next 15 years on the development agenda to eliminate poverty, to eliminate hunger, to empower women. And these are all very logical goals, and literally tens of thousands of organizations around the world, from service clubs like Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, to faith-based groups, to just a multitude of others, will be supporting some or all of those goals as you move forward. One, though, goal number 5 is to empower women. How important is that in what we've been talking about with youth unemployment, to bring women into the picture and to make sure that they play an active role, they play a critically important role to within their family, within their community, in helping to overcome this particular problem?
It's fundamental. It's fundamental, goal number 5, but I can say that actually youth are going to be central to several goals of the SDGs. You mentioned goal 5 on women and gender equality. Let me just say that all the statistics we've been talking about, actually women are usually the double of unemployed, although their participation rate is even lower. So that shows the challenge, and they are coming from structural discrimination, which starts at the level of education, but also then access to job market. And I really think that a fundamental transcendental, if I may say, objective of this global initiative is really to focus on young women and young girls, education, training, but also access to jobs, and try to address this from their perspective.
Exactly. Well, Ms. Azita Berar, Ahwad, this is a very important topic. It's extremely critical that we deal with it now, and I'm glad to see the ILO and 20 other sister agencies are involved in this. But I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you very much for having me on the first day of this launch.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.